going to go ahead and record. I think it's going to take a while to admit everybody, so feel free to say hello in the chat. Let us know where you're joining from. It's good to see everybody. I'm not sure if a lot of people are taking today off or not, but I thought it was a great time to host this because hopefully everybody's rolling right into a bit of a break. Looks like Isabel's joining from Salt Lake. Hi, David. Good morning.
Hi there.
Good morning. David is our co-host today. We're just going to give everybody just a minute to join. I'm going to move into my office. I just got done with a call. My office will be a little bit more quiet. Other than that, in the chat, it would be great if everybody wants to just let us know what you guys are doing for Thanksgiving. This is going to be, it's going to last for about an hour and a half. You guys can stay as long as you want, or you can leave if you have other work to do. Turn my video on here. Good morning, everybody. We're just going to give everybody just a minute. Usually about the 5-minute mark is when everybody is sort of settled in. Looks like we have folks from Salt Lake, Connecticut, Northern Ireland. Ooh, I'm jealous. Oregon.
I was in Salt Lake City and Portland yesterday. Flying home to Austin. So
okay. Perfect example of our lives. We've got Oregon, San Francisco, more Portland, Austin, Utah. Hi, Carly.
Hi.
Hi. All right. Okay, so we probably were at a good point to get started. All right. So thanks for everybody for joining us. We are joined also by our friend David, who is a health guru. And David, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and kind of the new adventure that you're going on right now.
Sure. So my name is David T. Stevens. I go by that because that's the name I was able to reserve on all my social media. So that's why you will see that. I just go ahead and update my name in the chat there. There we go. Okay. So I've been an event and meeting and conference and incentive professional for the last 20 years. I've worked everything from entertainment in radio and concerts to associations and agency and in-house at corporate, doing all the things. And as of IMEX, I announced my quote retirement from corporate, like seems to be a lot of people are doing right now. And I'm going to be focusing on helping companies figure out how to incorporate wellness into their meetings, events, incentives, etc. Helping them understand what that looks like. I have been doing this for the last probably 5 years. I spent some time at 24 Hour Fitness corporate planning all their meetings and incentives and whatnot. And I just learned to build a meeting a different way. And in 2018, 2019, some friends of mine, we talked about doing like healthy meetings, or we're going to call it fit meetings or whatever. And then the pandemic came along and reminded us that health is wealth, and that wellness is a bigger category than just meal planning and working out. And with that, we evolved into this company called Olympian Meetings. And my friends have kind of been running it on the back burner, who I've been helping, but now I am diving in full time and helping people realize that incorporating wellness is not as hard as you think and not as expensive as you think either.
Yeah. And we're going to discuss here wellness for the individual, but also wellness for your meetings. because we can really change a lot of lives, which I am excited to see Dennis on here. Dennis and I are share a lot of the same passions. So hi Dennis, good to see you. My goodness, it's been a
Good to
while.
see you.
Um,
Years.
yeah, so my background in wellness really started when I got pregnant with my child. I've always been well, a lot of us have been, but how's that defined really? Like, how do we really look at that? And so it was a pause moment for me, and probably a lot of you guys have had pause moments throughout your life, like big things happen and then you pause and you're like, wait, I need to do this differently. I met Dennis through the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which is a professional organization based on evidence for making lifestyle changes to really improve the wellness of the world. Really, can really help with like reversing even heart disease, helping prevent and things like cancer and stuff like that. So we're really excited to have you here, Dennis. I also see some other really familiar faces of folks that we have worked with over the years. And one I want to mention is Carly. Carly, if you want to say hi, Carly has did work with us and several amazing tech companies. And Carly has started her own mission to help individuals through coaching. So Carly, why don't you say hi too?
Hi, sorry, I'm making breakfast, otherwise my camera would be on. So I'll see you guys in a second. Yeah, I help people gain clarity on what they want out of their careers, but I also really focus on within that finding balance. So we do exercises like defining what your personal values are so that when you are moving into that next role, you're not sacrificing yourself again. And I feel like a lot of the people I talk to are just so burnt out and really over that kind of like hustle culture mentality. And so, yeah, it's been really rewarding to just kind of help people figure out what are kind of like those red flags when they get into a role or even just in their personal lives of like, whoa, okay, I need to step back. I need to reassess. This may not be the right role for me, or maybe there's something else that's impacting, but yeah, that's who I am.
Nice. And Carly is a kindred spirit in so many ways. She has lived our lives. And she is an inspiration to me because of how she transitioned into her new role. So I adore you, Carly. And yeah.
Mutual.
Yay. Also, I want this is a perfect segue into the beginning of this session. So in your wellness journey, a lot of people who registered, I compiled the results, but everybody said that they're about a 5.5 on their wellness journey today. And they would like to get to, which I thought was interesting, an 8.5. I'm like, we're very practical people here. We're not aiming for the 10. We're very practical to understand that there's ebbs and flows to that process.
I guess some of us are at 10, but I'm not going to toot my own horn either.
I know. I'm like, we're all type A, but we're all pragmatic at the same time.
Well, I just came from a competition, so I better be top notch at this point. So it's just at this level in my life at this time.
I love it. I love it.
Feel it.
So a little bit of background about why now. Why are we talking about this right now? So there was another webinar that took place, or a meetup, I guess, in the community. And when a lot of us attended that meetup, for me personally, I was a little bit shaken. I was like, oh, geez, we've got all these issues that people are dealing with in our community. And I felt the need to come in and say, okay, well, we do have these issues, but a lot of us are doing a lot of really great things to help drive sort of this positive momentum. And so the purpose of this is to drive that momentum. It's a collaborative session. You can join in and add to the slides. I'll go ahead and put them in the chat now. But really, it is to really just bring us together as a community and enable some amazing conversations. So we did host this session before, but we didn't have an opportunity to finish it up. It doesn't have to go in any particular order. So for the folks who attended the last one that do want to drop, we are going to start with a few slides, and then we're going to start at the beginning, which starts with a little bit of an exercise to get us all sort of straight on the path of wellness. So first, any questions before we get started? I'll be watching in the chat, but usually people are pretty just kind of hanging out. But any questions before we get started? No? Okay, great. All right. So first off, we're going to discuss how to carve out time to get work done during events. So like David was saying, he just flew from event to home, and now he's got probably a big to-do list of stuff he's got to do. How do you get through that to-do list when you're on site? So one thing that we've done is us personally, or me personally, I often feel the need to be working the entire time, managing my team and maybe just kind of managing all the things. But when we allow the teams to get scheduled breaks and communicate to the team the different tasks that need to get done during that week, as well as our managers, it helps work block our time and make sure we get stuff done. It's just that one tiny tweak. What we do is we schedule the team, but then as we're scheduling the team, we schedule the activities that actually need to get done on site. So it's just one tiny change in your mentality as you're doing your planning. One more thing to check off as you're doing it is to make sure you're planning that in. And then train someone else to do your job on site. Sometimes there's people that can do it and sometimes there's not, but it's, again, that tiny little thing of, well, what happens if I need to step away for an hour? Right now, nobody might be able to fill your role, but if you just train someone and say, hey, I have other jobs and other things I have to do, and you build that into your flow, it'll be helpful. And again, if anybody has any questions, just put them in the chat. One thing that I always try to do post an event, because usually you're going from show to show to show, is to figure out ways in advance to de-stress as you're going in. So some stuff that I do, and I know a lot of people do, and you guys can feel free to go to slide 22 and add on here, but I try not to schedule anything the day after I get back. Sleep is really helpful. Getting your body back into your regular diet. When we're traveling, we're eating usually not the same food we would eat at home. So trying to get that in there. I do things like liquid IV, and I also, I clean my house before I leave. And then I order food or try to figure out food before I go, so I don't have to worry about food when I get back.
I think a couple things I'd like to add in here is,
Yeah.
this includes digital events.
Yes.
I learned the hard way that when I did a digital event, it was like a half-day event first thing in the morning, and then I had like all my regular meetings in the afternoon. I was useless. Take the afternoon off. Like, yeah, normally you would anyways, right? So there's no reason to treat a digital event any differently than a in-person event. Like, you're still spent, take the effort, like, take advantage of it and make sure that you give yourself that room to breathe. I think the other thing that isn't on here, and this is going to catch people off guard, go to a rage room.
Oh, well, tell me more.
Have you never heard of a rage room?
No.
Okay. All right. Rage rooms I'm curious. If anybody's heard of a rage room, put it in the chat. Just say me or yes or +1 or +1,000 or whatever. I'm just kind of curious. Quick impromptu poll. Has anybody even heard of a rage room before?
No.
Okay. Heard of it, never attended. Yes, +1. Okay. All right. So what it is, there are these rooms where you go in and you wear gloves, you wear coveralls, you have goggles on, and you just smash stuff.
I have heard of it.
Glasses and plates and Some of them have like electronics. And look, I think the big thing I've learned around wellness is it means different things to different people. And depending on how your event went, like you might need a rage room and not a massage. Like you may need to get some shit out, and that's okay. That's totally therapeutic. It's just a different way of doing it, especially if you had an attendee or an executive that was just relentless with changes and you just left there buzzing with frustration.
Yeah.
Great option. Not something we normally think of. We always try to think zen and calm and whatnot, but sometimes you just got to let it out. And it's much better doing it in a venue that's literally built for exactly that than anyone else. So you get it all out. You end up usually laughing hysterically. And one of the 3 ways that you can reset all your brain chemicals to their default levels is laughing until you cry.
That's amazing.
And like if you go with a couple people, like you take your team, everyone's dying laughing because you're smashing stuff. And yeah, it's a very non-traditional option when you think wellness, but if you scheduled your event, your team, like after the event's over, loadout's done, and a group of you go smash stuff together, I guarantee you're all going to leave having a great time and bonded even deeper.
Yeah, I do love that actually, because some events are just going to the next thing, but sometimes big things happen, right? And a lot of the times we're the only folks that know about the big things, or it's a
Right.
small, tiny little group. And so I could see Mondo healing through that for sure. And I love that you mentioned virtual. One thing that I also do with virtual to maintain throughout is I do a basket just full of high protein, water, beverages, tea, all that stuff. So, it's all there. I don't have to worry about it. And then, one thing I think we need to do better about in our team is just, Mia saying she goes boxing, is reminding each other to get up and stretch. Like stretching is such a thing. All right, awesome. Okay, so the next thing is something that I thought that I was doing, and maybe a lot of us think that we are doing, but we might not be. So listening to your brain and your body. I am a checklist person. Anyone else? Yeah. I thrive well with a checklist. If I tell myself that I've relaxed, by golly, and I check it off a list, that means that I relaxed. No, apparently that is not true. So I'm going through some health stuff, which has basically had me pause my life and be like, I have to live it a different way. I don't have a choice. I have to live it a different way. And so one thing that I've been doing is really asking myself, when I'm listening to my body and my brain when I'm listening to my brain versus my body, I should say. Versus, because the brain says you're doing all these things, but the body isn't necessarily in tune with the brain. So, anybody experience that? Yeah, I'm here. There's not a lot of people on video, but I'm seeing some. I'll give you an example. So, there's Carly. Carly's like, yeah, girlfriend. Yeah, girlfriend.
Yes.
Okay. So I get a massage once a month. I meditate every day. I green juice. I go for walks. I hang out with friends. I have a monthly brunch date with all my girlfriends. See the checklist happening? I'm very good at it. Very good at it. However, if I were to pause and sit and be like, Lisa, how are you actually doing? I ignore that part and I just keep going. I will work an extra hour, 2 hours. Sometimes I'll work till 2 a.m. Carly, you know this. She's getting emails from me. It's not great, but I ignore the body and I just focus on the brain because I'm apparently a superhero. but I'm not. I'm just a human, just like everybody else. So that part is something I've been focusing on. And I think a lot of us struggle with that because there's deadline after deadline after deadline. It never stops in our industry. So anyone want to share about their journey through that?
I think I learned a tough lesson in corporate around this. I saw it happen to a boss of mine. She just kept saying yes to everything and acted like she could do everything. And she just ended up working herself into the ground. And I found that saying no to things, or saying, can I have additional budget for a contractor? Or we're maxed out, we don't have the capacity to take that on, or things of that nature. That's how I got headcount. That's how I grew a team, was by pushing back and saying no to things. So I think it's a very tough mindset to get into, because we're, for whatever reason, we all feel really lucky to have the jobs we have. And so we just overcommit ourselves and end up taking on too much. Whereas we need to get more comfortable with the fact that we're humans and that we need our time as well. And that just because we have a great job doesn't mean that we should be worried about losing it to someone else. We should take great confidence in our ability and the reason that we are in that role, and speaking up and saying, no, the plate is full. So we either have to not do something else, or we need to bring in additional resources in order to deliver on this.
Yeah, Carly, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's hard to learn to listen to your body. And so some of the ways that I started doing that was like very tangible things of like paying attention to my patterns of like when, oh, this is my cat Blair. She's just hanging out. Sorry. There she is. I started paying attention to my patterns of like things that I would do when I was in a really like healthy headspace versus when I was like really overwhelmed and struggling. And so when I'm learning to listen to my body, and maybe like I'm so in my brain and have like the running checklist, and like my brain is telling me you can't slow down, you can't stop, I can go, okay, I'm noticing like I don't drink at home. I live alone. I don't really drink very much. I don't drink at home alone. When I'm like noticing that I'm like, ooh, maybe I should have a beer tonight. Maybe I should have a glass of wine. For me, that's an indicator that like I'm using this as a substitute for actual relaxation. I need to slow down. Or things like I stop going on my daily walks. I've had clients tell me one would like start smoking because it would give her a 15-minute break outside, and that she would actually step away from her computer. So I just started paying attention to like, what are things that I do when I'm really like struggling and overwhelmed? Because I think sometimes on paper, you're like, well, I'm having the girl brunch, I'm seeing my friends, I'm doing this workout. But, you know, when you're with your friends, how much are you talking, complaining about work? How often are you checking your email? And so I think like paying attention to those things can be a really good way to start saying like, okay, am I checking in with myself? If I'm doing XYZ, then I know, okay, we're probably in a good place. Or if I'm doing ABC, then maybe I'm not in a good place. And I need to check in and say, okay, what needs to change? What do I need to say no to? What do I need support on? Am I taking breaks in the middle of the day? Some of those kinds of things. I think that's really helped me learn, okay, what am I feeling in my body when I'm deciding that I should have a glass of wine instead of going for a walk?
Yeah, 100%. I think one thing, so I worked at a startup for 5 years and I had 9 managers in that 5 years, which is pretty common. I had another client, they had just this 1 year, they've had 5 CMOs, which I was like, how? But apparently it's possible. When you're constantly having to prove yourself in a state of where you're also making money, that is a challenge, right? And so that there's that added pressure of I have to do well, and then the new CMO comes in and might look at you as weak if you can't get a project done, or you don't have enough time, or how dare you take a vacation, we've got a thing, right? So did anyone struggle through that? I can share mine. But has anyone struggled through that? Because that was something during that 5 years I struggled with. Not being looked at as like the weak link, even though I worked more than anyone on the team. It was like I was constantly proving myself. So anyone have feedback there?
Yeah, I just want to comment about that is getting your self-worth from your work. And that those messages that go through your head that I'm not worthy or I'm worthless. So it's real performance based. And there's often a mismatch in corporate America, a big one, between what has to get done and you as a human. And I found that if you have a team that helps you, like an organic organism, help one another, when one's up, the other one's down, that helps a lot. But I think the big one is the messages that you say to yourself. I'm a failure if I don't get this done. And I had a case where I got cancer because I was up 4 days straight with a high stress situation. And that's a lot of hours. And when you could kind of do it when you're 20, but it falls apart at 30. You can't just live on pizza and Coke and stuff like that. So
You mean
try to
Coca-Cola,
prove
right?
yourself. What?
You mean Coca-Cola, right?
Yeah. Coca-Cola. Sorry.
Well, I
Okay.
mean, you said you went 4 days straight, so
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. You're on an adrenaline to fix something.
I love it.
Yeah.
Anka.
Yeah, funny.
Anka.
Remember, this is
What do you
recorded.
think? Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to be civilized and raise my voice versus just jumping in.
No, you're
Um,
great. You're great. Go for it.
Okay, so obviously my background is a little different than your regular event planner, even though, you know, by all accounts, I've done all sides of the industry, but having been in the event production industry for almost 20 years, there's a lot of pressure to perform, especially when you have to prove yourself, like you were just saying, Lisa, again and again and again, because your counterparts are usually guys, men that are in the industry. It's a very male-dominated industry, right? Event production. So I definitely felt the pressure to do that, and I had to figure out a way to find balance in trying to constantly outperform, because you're just as good as your last show, right? In everything that you do. But I'm talking about technical, on the technical level, on the execution level. And for the longest time, I've gone through one cycle of another of burnout. And I would come out of a cycle and be like, okay, well, I'll do better this time. And then, sure enough, you know, I would fall prey to the same cycle until I had to change everything from like the very foundation of my habits. Like every habit that I would have, I had to look at it and be like, okay, is this serving me well? Doing something. I loved how you're touching in with your body, right? Like when I would have those high stressful days, first thing I would ask myself in the morning is, what do you need? I would ask myself, I can tackle whatever the challenge is. And sometimes that involves, you know, breathing, box breathing. I love to do that, especially on high stake events where everything is sort of like on your shoulders. But also I would go to the bathroom and I would do some push-ups to get my body involved into just burning that steam so I can get myself to a place of, I think, David, you call that like parasympathetic something, like you have an actual science name for this. But at the very basic level is I'm trying to calm myself down. And the best way for me is to involve movement and to involve my breathing to just get it all, you know, sort of like under control. Because I do tend to suffer from some chronic anxiety that I had to battle over the years, and I had to figure out strategies. The strategies for me to have some type of different tool in your pocket to implement and have that as your go-to.
Yeah, Anka, what you were referring to is there is a sympathetic nervous system and a parasympathetic nervous system. And your sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight mode. And your parasympathetic nervous system is what is engaged when you slow down. And it's unintuitively named because you would think sympathetic and sympathy and calm and whatnot, but it's the names are what they are. But the box breathing engages your parasympathetic nervous system, which actually calms you, slows your heart rate, and decreases your adrenaline. So but sometimes that's not what you need. It's kind of like these ADHD medications that someone who's hyperactive and someone who can't focus because they're bored, or there's two sides of the same coin, and one drug works the same for both of them. So sometimes you need to go for a run instead of box breathing.
Well, I feel like that's why I need to touch on too, because I do have chronic anxiety, but I'm also a high functioning ADHD, right? So it's like I have to somehow manage both of them. And then if all of that collapses, then I can't function on event day. So I have to figure out tools and strategies for myself, regardless of the pressure or the challenges ahead. And for me, both of those.
Yeah, as someone who also has ADHD, it can be really hard to trust yourself and like listen. Like it's none of those listen to your body, where sometimes you're like, I can sit at my computer for 3 hours right now and struggle to get done 5% of this, or I can walk away and then come back and do it when I like know I feel motivated to do it. But in events, that's really hard because everything is so deadline driven. And so it's like, I know that I could do happening. And I think like, for me in events and just in life, like I try to build in that buffer for myself. But it's hard to like set yourself up for what you think you might need, when on the day you could be like, oh, there's no possible way that I could do this, or I thought I needed a chill day and instead I'm going to clean my entire apartment, which is what I did yesterday.
And I think a lot of us are very similar in this boat, like overachievers, like drill through. I know one thing that I do all the time is I'm a self-sacrificer. I'm just like, whatever, like it's fine. I'll just keep going. I had a manager who was just like, you have a very high tolerance for pain. And was telling me that as it was a good thing. And I'm like, I don't think that's a good thing. Like, it just because no, that's not good. But you come into work every day and you're smiling and you do a good job. And I'm like, that doesn't mean I'm not stressed. So communicating that you're stressed is really important. Okay, I'm going to keep going because we have a lot to cover. One thing that I love about being type A is there's almost like we can like come up with these creative solutions, right? We can, a lot of us don't have issues with like brainstorming and coming up with ways to fix things. So I find it super helpful. Maybe some of you guys do. If you don't, maybe you could give it a whirl. But I do a lot of forecasting and a lot of work blocking. So I start on Thursdays or the Friday before. I plan out my whole next week. I block tasks so that I can get them done. I'll make sure my team knows what is you can book over versus what you can't book over. I don't attend or accept meetings if they're over block time. I hold extra time in my day for projects that run over. Now, I'm not perfect at this. Sometimes I move to the next day, but at least it gives you a goal. I run quarterly bandwidth and planning sessions so that, we can see, wow, Q1, Q2, we're going to be busy, or, hey, August is a great time to go on vacation. Carly had mentioned that for my team, I have everybody kind of forecast when they're busy and build their vacations a year in advance. Like I went to New York in August, I booked that flight in January. That way I'm locked in. I don't have a choice. I'm going. I'm not canceling. I block my breaks and I block my exercise, but again, I'm a checklist person. It's easy for me to feel like I'm accomplished when I do this. It's also easy to just not do it and fill the time with something else. So, has anybody used Reclaim? It's an amazing.
Is it like Clockwise?
Yes, I think so.
Yes.
It's a free app.
Any
use
AI
it.
tools you have, Lisa, bring it on.
Yes, I use it. It's free. You get 3 things that'll block. It'll go in if my Calendly, because Calendly is a blessed tool, but it is also very wicked at the same time, because somebody can come in and book all your time and then you're constantly trying to protect your time. Reclaim reclaims that time. So I'm just on the paid version right now. I think for 2024, I'm going to buy the paid version. It goes through and just says, okay, Lisa's been really busy today. She's going to need 30 minutes of a break. And it's all pre-scheduled and it does it for you. It's all automated. And then if you need to move things around, you can. But these apps, we do have more in here, are really, really helpful. And again, I'm going to keep going because we have a lot to cover. Any other apps, I guess you can drop in the chat. This is another one. Anka was very, I love how you just kind of dived in. You've got to work out. And a lot of us may have that in our routine already, but if you don't, and Dennis, you'll know this from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, the mind, body, and spiritual connection, those 3 things, when they're all working, the mind meaning you're doing things that are, creative in your brain and you're using it. The body means movement, and the spiritual part can mean many things to many people. It could be a walk outside in nature. It could, if you're religious, it could be spending time in the Word every morning. It could be you could consider spirituality, bonding with people in your network, or some people are even into crystals, the whole crystals, or they'll spend time doing, there's all sorts of stuff, but that mind-body connection, if it is all working, you'll have the highest yield results. But if you miss exercise, even if it's 5 minutes every once in a while, your yoga or walking, your body will start to deteriorate, your mind will deteriorate. It all kind of goes together. So I use Asana Rebel. I don't know if there's any other apps, but Asana Rebel is one that I've used. And I also have walking meetings.
What do you use Asana Rebel for, Lisa, really quick?
Asana Rebel has amazing short, quick exercises. It has music, yoga, meditation. It's also for wellness. It tracks your water, gives you healthy recipes. It's just kind of that like overall zen.
So it's kind of similar to MyFitnessPal in that regard.
I use MyFitnessPal too, but again, I'm very type A.
Right, I get it, because I have multiple apps too, and I think David has one that he uses for his cross workouts. But I'm just curious, what does it do extra? Because I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, so it's more of a Zen mind, body, spiritual connection all in one app. I find that MyFitnessPal focuses mostly on food and exercise, but the
And
Asana
nutrition especially, probably exercise not so much. So I'm curious if that adds to that.
Yes, it does. Very much so. Yeah. And all of the exercises in like calm locations with calm music, stuff like that. And I do pay for it. It's worth it to me. It also has, I call it like study music, really, like cool different music that you can use that is in tune with your brain to get your waves properly kind of evened out throughout the day. And then I use Calm as well. Calm is like Headspace, but they have a movement component now. And so it's just quick 5-7 minutes. I do it in the morning and I do it at night. And I find that by getting that movement in, it really balances your mind, body, spiritual connection in the beginning and the end of the day. Any others that people have? Hi, Pavan. Nice to see you.
I would like to address something that's going on in that people are talking about in the chat.
Yeah.
So people are talking about that midday slump. So there's actually a term for this, and it's because it's part of our circadian rhythm. It's called the postprandial drip, or not drip, dip, postprandial dip. And it is actually what happens. It is a dip in your energy levels. It's why Europe and mostly Spain, they take their siestas. It is a very, very common thing. Now, something I've heard that I have not been able to firsthand verify, but it came from a very trusted source, is that if you skip caffeine for your first hour of your day,
Yes.
that is when your sleepy time hormones are being released. And what happens is, if you do have caffeine in the first hour of your day, you'll still have that dip, where supposedly if you skip caffeine in the first hour, that dip will be less significant. You're still going to have it, but what it does is it inhibits you from by having that coffee, like bed to coffee maker, right? What it does is it keeps those sleep hormones in your body, and then they finally get out by the afternoon, and that's what hits you so hard and why you take a nap. Now that is in theory. Everybody's different. You might get up in the morning and do a crazy workout, and 5 to 6 hours later, once your body temperature has gone back to its regular level and you've had lunch, all that stuff just kind of adds up, and you're tired anyways. That could be happening also. But it was an interesting thing, but that dip is real deal. And that's why our events should, when we look at our agenda, we got to plan for that, because if you're coming in with some expensive keynote right after lunch, you might as well just keep the money, because you're flushing it down the toilet.
True. But it's funny educating your team, right? So that first keynote versus the second keynote, we actually just had this, David, with a client, because they were like, we feel like that first keynote shouldn't be the CMO or the cool thing, right? Like the product update or whatever. It should be the second one. And I said, absolutely, it should be the second one. The first one, everyone's coming in late, kind of get situated. It's the second one that everybody is there. You can keep the first one short, but most people are a little bit more in tune. But that is, and David, I do tons of reading on this. I don't know where I heard that from, but I have read this many, many times, that skipping caffeine the first hour does accomplish that. So I don't know where you heard it, but
I heard it from Tahira on my last episode of my show.
Yep.
So maybe you heard it there because you were watching it, because I know.
Yes, definitely there.
But yeah, it's something I've heard. I haven't taken the time to go find the research on it, but either way, that afternoon dip is, regardless, it is natural to our bodies and the way we work. So I saw Carly said she doesn't do caffeine, but she still gets the slump. Yeah, that's because it's normal. That's because that's just the way we are. To kind of even put a exclamation point on this point, the person I learned this from, she's a performance psychologist. She's another guest of the show, and she was doing consulting with the Pentagon and the DoD, and they moved their wartime meetings from after lunch to before lunch, because that's how impactful it was on the way your brain is functioning from let's say 8 to noon versus how it's functioning from 1 to 3. So the lives of our service members were in the balance, and they changed their meetings so that they could be sharper for that. So just a little interesting point if you're trying to, help people understand that dip is a real thing, and you can't deny it.
Yeah.
I think what really helps me to overcome that, to your point, is I actually do work out in the morning, and every time I do that, I feel like I don't necessarily experience the dip in the afternoon. The days when I don't, I feel that strongly, but then I also literally would take a 20-minute nap, cat nap.
Yeah.
So I set my time for 30 minutes, takes me a bit like 5 minutes to 10 minutes to just quiet down. And 20 minutes is enough to just get that power nap in, and then get back to my day, to my work day, and finish strong. That really helped my my productivity, especially in the middle of the day when I'm like starting to get a little like unfocused.
Yeah. It was popular for a while that a lot of companies had quiet rooms. I know a company I worked at did, and then all of a sudden new management came in and all of that went away. Everyone's like, people don't use it. It's like, I used it. Am I not a
That would
human?
be amazing to have access to one of those, right?
Yeah. I mean, I have a ginormous beanbag in my office and lights over it and stuff. And you can create that at your home office, but when you're in an office and you're surrounded just by constant, to have that quiet space is really, really helpful. So if you don't have one,
Especially if you're like an ambivert or a introvert. I
Yeah.
would go crazy if I were in an office without some quiet time.
yeah, I'm 100% more at my best working at home. I'll be honest, especially since I mean, at 2:22, Joy just walks right in my door. My kid walks in my door and I just get a shot of Joy at 2:22 p.m. every day. Like, you're not going to get that at work. Gives me a hug. There's nothing like it. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next one, social media management tips. I don't know about y'all, but social media and all the things that we do, YouTube, I don't do Twitter anymore, but some people do. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all the things can be a very quick rabbit hole. And all of a sudden you've spent 20 minutes, 30, and even an hour, and you're like, wait, what did I do with my life? So I think it's important to mention it. Several of us are also responsible for social media at work. And so we're constantly posting at trade shows or thinking of ideas to post or grabbing ideas. And so setting aside one time a week to do your social, I think has been helpful for me, even personally, sometimes better than others, but there's no reason why I need to be on all the time. Taking a break is great. Turning off your notification, and then having an accountability partner that's also struggling, if you are struggling, is really helpful. Anything to add on that?
Doom scrolling is real. Avoid it.
Oh, you're guilty of that. I think for me, it's important to choose what is the most important social media channels, maybe few to be on. Like, I just gave up on Threads as of late. I'm like, I can't keep up with this thing. Like, I don't know what's happening. Is anybody on Threads anymore? Like, it was such a hot thing for a minute, and now it's like, I don't know. LinkedIn, definitely the place where I would want to, focus on. But then everything else is like, talking as someone that has 9 Instagram accounts, okay? I'm just saying balance is important. And sometimes you have to pick your battles and choose your audience wisely, knowing, okay, maybe doing some A/B testing, knowing where do they live, what's actually giving you some return on all that time spent on posting. Now, probably, Lisa, you can identify with that. Sometimes you just post because you feel like you have to check a box.
Yeah.
It's like, I gotta post, not because I have like it's necessary, but because if I don't, I feel like I didn't check that box. And yeah, I tend to fall prey to that, and I just need to figure out, just for myself, first and foremost, like, is it really necessary to post on all 9 accounts, or maybe we should just focus on 2,
Yeah.
or 3 maybe.
Yeah. And so I have a girlfriend who we were just chatting, and she was like, I'm spending my nights next to my partner on social media. And she was telling me that she was struggling with that relationship. And I said, you know what? Why don't we be accountability buddies? Why don't we delete our social on Sunday night or whatever, and then we can download it whenever, and we can kind of just check in and see how we're doing. And that's been really helpful. It's kind of motivated us. And then one thing that we're doing with our friend group, because I'm kind of quarantined right now due to health stuff, I can't really go anywhere, is we've decided that we're just going to chat or text each other. So we just text each other random photos and things that we're doing as a friendship group to feel connected, so we don't have to feel like, oh, we need to go to this social media channel to feel connected. Our friends are constantly sending cute pictures of whatever, and that's been really helpful too. But it's those conversations and being open, I think, that kind of got us there, which was really great. All right, so we are at the end of the portion number 1. This is kind of where we dropped off last time. So if anybody is going to drop, you're more than welcome to stay, because we're really going to start back at the beginning. And there's so much resources and great stuff. We've got about 30-ish minutes that we'll still dive in. But if anybody needs to drop, you are more than welcome to drop at any time, because we know you guys are busy. But just checking in. How's everybody doing? Hour and a half is a long time to talk about wellness. So let's talk about how we're doing as we're talking about wellness. Look at me, Carly. I'm learning.
I love it.
I just love Carly. I miss working with you. Hi, Deanne. So good to see you on here. Oh, there we go. All right. Okay, so it looks like everybody is going to be here. So first off, we're going to kind of reboot and restart. Oh, can everybody hear me? Oops. There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
No, you're good.
So we
Don't
didn't
stop the recording, Lisa.
I know, right? So we didn't say this at the beginning, but we are not doctors or health professionals. We are just here to love on y'all and provide resources. Always consult with your doctor before you try something new. We just want to throw that out there. I'm gonna go up, put it in full screen mode now. I do want to do a few thank yous. David is now doing this for a second time with us, so thank you, David, so much for joining. Anka as well. And then Miss Mia on our team is here to do a little bit of yoga stretch. So I think this is a great time, Mia, if this works for you, to do a little bit of some stretch, so we can kind of get our bodies back into Zen before we dive in for the next 30 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm just repositioning my laptop, so just give me one moment.
Okay.
Mia
does do this for virtual events and all sorts of stuff, and our team, she's you are what do you call it, certified? You are a certified yoga instructor.
Yeah, yep. So I teach yoga at a local studio twice a week. So this is my hobby. I love it. And I think yoga can sometimes feel intimidating, or like you have to be really flexible, but that's definitely not the case. And I think just incorporating it here and there when you can is a great way to help. It's a great tool to use on your health journey, if you will. Okay, so without further ado, I'm just gonna lead us through a couple of stretches that are really simple to do at your desk, at your chair. I'm at my desk right now. And so if you want to stand up, I think that's great too. Sometimes it's nice to just stand up between meetings, if you have 5 minutes. But if you'd like to join me here, if you could sit on your chair and make sure that your feet are planted I'm gonna do that a little bit. Planted firmly on the ground. Sometimes that means you have to scooch up a little bit. Like I'm pretty short, so I sit on the edge of my chair. Both feet are planted firmly on the ground. And then just take a few rolls of the shoulder to the back of the room. Scrunching up and then really squeezing the shoulder blades as you move your shoulders back. And then switch directions, go forward as well. And a lot of times you can just kind of sit hunched over on your desk. So just warming up the shoulders a little bit. And then if you'll inhale, arms up. And then gaze at your hands as they go up. And as you breathe out, dropping the chin towards the chest, getting into the neck a little bit. So inhaling the arms up, looking up. And then exhaling the arms down, looking down. Incorporating breath and movement. And being very mindful with your movements as you flow here. Let's do one more round, inhaling up. And exhaling down. Great. From here, we're going to interlace our fingers behind our back. So sometimes this is nice to stand up and do. If you just interlace the fingers, and sometimes it can be good to interlace the opposite way. But from here, drawing the knuckles down the back and opening up the chest, lifting the gaze up slightly. And breathing in and out through your nose here. Feeling the chest expand on the inhales and feel it move back in towards the spine on your exhales. If you want to try switching your grip, now would be a good time to do that. Sometimes it can feel a little bit different. One more breath. And then let it go. Shake it out. We'll do a little bit of the hips now. So I'm going to tilt my screen down so you can kind of see. And I am wearing slippers. So what you're going to do is cross your ankle over the thigh, getting into the hip a little bit. It can also be nice to do this standing if you want to like grab the table and balance, but just putting your ankle on your thigh and then gently maybe pressing down slightly, getting into that hip crease. Pressing down with the right hand if you're doing the right leg, or even just picking up your whole leg entirely if the body allows. And sometimes you'll find that your body changes from day to day. So if you feel like, oh, I was able to do this yesterday, I can't do it today, that's totally normal. Our bodies are constantly evolving. So if you want to switch sides, getting into the left side now. Maybe applying some very light pressure. Don't force anything. Maybe even picking the whole leg up, getting into the hip a little bit. Or maybe trying out your balance and grabbing onto your desk as you do it. We'll do one more breath here. And then placing your feet on the ground. We'll do one last exercise today for the shoulders. We'll inhale the arms up into a Y shape. And then as we exhale, bringing the elbows in towards the ribs, making like a W shape. Squeezing the shoulder blades as you do so. So we'll inhale to the Y and exhale to the W. And then moving here at your own pace again, matching breath and movement. This is great. I know I sit at my desk just hunched over all day, so really getting into the shoulders and the chest feels really nice, especially after a long day of staring at my screen. And again, these are just a couple of movements that you can incorporate maybe if you have a couple of minutes before your meetings or right after if it ends early, or even just standing up and taking a walk like around your house or your apartment or your office between meetings is really great for the body. Just incorporating movement where you can. Let's do one more round and then I'll hand it back to Lisa and the team to take it away. So thank you, everyone. And if you have any yoga questions, please feel free to chat me. And yeah, thanks, everyone.
Mia, you're amazing. And sometimes she even leads yoga with our team. So thank you, Mia. I really appreciate it. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Again, I shared the deck. So in the deck, if you have books you love, apps you love, eating recipes, tips, podcasts, all sorts of stuff, you can add them in there. We're going to quickly go through since we only have 30 minutes left. I'm going to actually, before I do that, I'm going to grab the link again because you might just have one that you want to drop in. And it really just helps because, you know, as people join the Event Professionals Network, which now has, gosh, I think 432 members or something like that. The whole goal of that group is to help people. And I know a lot of us struggle with this sort of thing. So, all right. So one thing that we did at the beginning of the last one is we discussed what makes you happier. So if you are sitting at your desk or whatever, I want you to grab a piece of paper and talk and just list one thing, a few things that make you happier. These can be simple things in your day, hanging out with certain people, activities. I know for me personally, and Carly kind of talked about this, if she gets a certain things in a day, she's happier. For me, it is a morning routine. So my partner just brought me my green juice. I have a certain morning routine with, I get a certain amount of protein and I get to kiss my kid on the head and go for a walk. If I can get that morning routine in, I'm a much happier person, because a lot of people are striving for this sort of unattainable happiness, right? It's like, why am I not happy? Well, life is not happy. Life is hard. Life is, this stuff is just coming at you all the time. So if we can change the mindset of why aren't we happy? I could just get this relationship, I would be happy. Or if I could just get this job, I would be happy. Or if I could just get over with this event, I would be happy. Well, in our world, just the world in general we're living in right now, that's not really a thing anymore. And as you get older, you realize that it's more about the small moments that make you happier. Little things that make me happy, and you guys can put them in the chat too, but honestly, green juice makes me happy. It makes me feel like I'm getting the right vitamins in the day. Quiet time makes me happy. Reading. Hugs make me very happy. Did you know that to maintain wellness, you need 12 hugs a day? 12. To like be thriving in your wellness,
I heard it was 8.
To maintain, you're right. To maintain, it's 8. To thrive in your wellness, it's 12. That's a lot of hugs.
I feel like on a good day, I might get 2, but that's like stretching it.
I know, friend. Especially if you live by yourself, how are you going to get those hugs? Better make some.
I need to get my kids to do that more often, or maybe I should lead by example. Homework for myself.
Yeah. So, all right. Now I want you to circle what you can do on the road. So morning routine, a little harder. Green juice, you're gonna have to work for it. Quiet time, how are you gonna accomplish that? So being mindful of not only doing that at home, but on the road is also good. I never thought about that. I don't know about you guys, but I just kind of was on the road. That was my life. I had a on the road life and I had my home life. I never thought about incorporating the two. Now let's talk about, or just jot down what makes you unhappy. Being stuck on a phone call of negativity is
people driving slow.
Yeah, bad drivers.
People in the left lane who don't know what it's for.
Negativity is my biggest thing that just drives me down to unhappiness. It's like, ugh, I don't love it. Certain people, maybe in the new year, it's time to evaluate who you're hanging out with. You know, are they lifting you up or they bringing you down? And then different activities. My partner likes to watch the pimple popping show and some of those shows. And I'm like, why? So helping then communicate that maybe you don't want those on in your house or when you're around, you know. Next, I want you to write down who you need to communicate with about these items to help you to be happier and less stressed. So just realized you all witnessed it. I need to tell my partner that he needs to be watching that show in private, not in the main room, because it's disturbing for me. Some people might love it. It's a thing. But for me, it's not great. And there's certain people, the holidays are coming up, right? You don't get to choose your family, you get to choose your friends. So the holidays are coming up. So maybe you tell your partner, or maybe just you personally, you're like, I can have small doses of this human. I can stay at this function for an hour and then I'm going to set an alarm and that gives me permission to leave. And so you're less stressed and see how that goes. Focusing on your happiness will improve the happiness of others around you and being able to communicate your needs. I think a lot of us just kind of jump into the day and live it and don't really communicate what our needs are and don't really even think about, oh, I actually have a need. And that could be resolved. That stress could be resolved, or I could move into a happier state if I just kind of sat in some quiet time to figure that out. So this is an exercise that you can do on your own once a week, once a month, once a quarter. And don't just look at it as your personal, look at it professionally too. So what's going to make you happier at work? It's going to make you, what makes you unhappy, so that you can kind of communicate to your manager too. Like, when I have to build emails, that's really rough. I don't love that. I get scared that I'm going to do something wrong or something like that. Like, that's important to be communicating to.
I found some value in doing a mind map and what was my purpose and what were the branches off that purpose, and just be able to sit back and look at it.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you talk to a friend, you don't know what you're thinking until you hear yourself. So I found value in that because there's a lot of pieces here that are like individual, but it really, I found the mind map with branches and branches to kind of fit together and look at as a whole. It's the way our brain works, is categorizes stuff in buckets and associations. So that might help people with all these things that are individual on a line. It's like a big email. Put it in a map essentially.
Yep. Yeah, because we're talking about a lot of things.
Yeah.
People are probably taking notes. They have this resource in the slides, but we're talking about a lot of stuff. So that's a great idea. Here's just some examples. I'm not going to go through them, but you have it in the deck. And David actually put this slide in here. So David, why don't you talk to it?
Yeah, I think it just reinstills the fact that we tend to be, I mean, we're part of the service industry. We see ourselves that way. We tend to prioritize everyone else's needs before our own. And we can't help anyone if we're broken ourselves. So there's no point in us constantly trying to be of value or of service to someone else when we haven't taken care of ourselves. So that's really what this is to drive this point home. It's much like on an airplane, you can't help other people if you're out of oxygen. So if you can't breathe, how are you going to help someone else breathe? You can't. So you have to help yourself first before you can help others. And that's just the fact. Otherwise, you are going to burn out. You are going to be frustrated. You are going to be terribly unhappy. You have to put yourself first.
Yep. Yeah. And that's not the default for a lot of us.
It's far from the default.
Yeah. And It's funny because we are in the service industry, but I mean, we're in the healthcare industry, really. We're taking care of people all day. That's what we do, is take care of people. And it's a magical thing, but you also have to take care of yourself. One book that has really helped me through my journey since August is Building the Life You Want, The Art and Science of Getting Happier. And it is by Oprah Winfrey and another gentleman. I don't have that memorized, but it talks about how to become happier, not happy. And that as a, especially in the United States, we're always striving for, I'm going to get that thing or have that relationship or buy, do all the things. And then that's going to make me happy, when really we're a nation of unhappy humans. So I really loved it. You might love it too. It's linked in there. Another one that really helps with my anxiety levels for planning on the professional side, to get organized, make sure I'm doing strategy, make sure there's like this clear path vision. It's a book called Sprint. I don't know if you guys have done sprint planning, but it's lovely. So that's another one. Most of you have probably heard of Atomic Habits. It's like, weird examples. You go to the bathroom, and every time you go to the bathroom, you do 15 squats. And you you build those habits into your life. Like, every time before you have breakfast, you have lemon water. You just build those tiny little habits in. So that's another one that's kind of fun. And I reread these books. I just have them on audiobook, and just for inspiration, like, oh yeah, I should do that. That's right. There's some other books in here. David, did you want to add any? Carly, you want to add any?
Well, I added Spark on this originally because it's the literal science behind movement. It's not about working out till you throw up. It's not about anything that intense, but it is about the physiological impact that movement has on your brain. And that if you don't move, you will not only get dumber, but you will die. So, movement is key to what we do. And the more you move, the better you're going to become. They have done the science, the studies. It's written by an MD. It is not mumbo jumbo. It is real deal science on why it's important for people to move and how it impacts people's brains, let alone fights depression, fights anxiety, improves test scores in kids, you name it. So,
yep. Yeah. There's actual evidence that when you contract your muscles, the muscle movement I think it releases endorphins. Like it's
IGF-1. I will warn you, the book can get a little clinical at times, but that's a good thing, right? It shows that they did the science. So, yeah.
Okay.
That's the hormone that's released.
Great. We're going to blast through, but there's apps that we love that you guys can look at. There's healthy eating tips. Downshiftology is my favorite gal. She's fantastic. I follow a pretty strict Mediterranean diet. Very, very much. I'm a huge believer, especially now since August, kind of going through my health stuff. I never really understood all of the knowledge of the diet and how important certain things were. Now I'm tracking everything I eat because it's a superpower. Food is a superpower, or super, I don't know, healing, whatever. But I just had no idea, really, to be honest. I was like, oh, well, that's delicious. I'll go ahead and eat that. And I was generally healthy, but I just wasn't getting the protein and certain things that I needed to. And probably a lot of you guys aren't, because we just don't know. And the American diet doesn't lead you into a place where your body is getting what it needs. So MyFitnessPal is the one that I use for tracking stuff. It's super helpful and you might want to give it a try. We also listed a bunch of super helpful podcasts. Miss Carly actually introduced me. Which one? Oh, We Can Do Hard Things. I think it was you. And
Yeah.
I don't listen to it as much, but she helped me get into the whole podcast thing where I was like, wow, this is so helpful. So if you aren't listening to podcasts, highly recommend that you do. Anybody want to comment on any podcast that you love?
I dropped a link in the chat earlier about a podcast takeover that I'm actually doing with David for Better Events podcast, which is another great podcast to follow, Better Events podcast. And we're actually doing a swap. They're taking over my podcast, Events Demystified, and we're taking over theirs. And we are touching on traveling tips for event professionals. So basically your survival tips, strategies if you're on the go, because we just came out of a very busy event season, and they're covering tips and strategies for on-site wellness as an event professional. So this is all going to happen on Friday. It's all going to air out on both sides of the podcast, but it's really just strategy for what we're talking about: wellness, fitness, health, just being overall, keeping our well-being in check and building strategies on how to do that. And obviously for each one of us, this is a personal journey, right? But just seeing what other people are doing, I learned quite a few things from just Logan and Mary. And, as far as I'm concerned, I think I'm pretty up there when it comes to fitness level, as far as knowledge goes, but it's good to see from their perspective what they're doing, and I'm like, oh, that's great, I might incorporate that. So just throwing it out there. I'm gonna try to put a link in here.
Yeah, grab the link, and then I think you're in the Event Professionals Network, but if you wouldn't mind putting it in the general channel, that would be great.
I'll put it in here because I'm trying to keep off Slack for this week for the time being. So
okay.
Yeah, which page are you on right now? The one with the podcast?
It is page 11. Again, we don't have much time, so I'm going to keep going, but protein and vitamins are really, really important because we work as an industry extremely hard. So Miss Mia put this lamp in here to help with the winter months. You want to look for 10,000 lux, but there's a little lamp here to help with the winter. Take your vitamin D, start your day with protein and sunlight, have your lemon water. Here's some protein stuff that I do. I am very plant-based, but in order to hit my protein goal, I still eat meat and all that stuff. And I do have a lot of protein as far as like powders and bars and stuff like that, because I'm not a big eater. I like to eat. It's just, I'm not very big. I can't eat that much. It's a lot to get that much protein. Here's some tips for creating healthy events. Start planning early, which I know is super struggle right now because budgets are being cut left and right. But if you can communicate to your team in general, I did a poll, and speakers like to be asked to talk 3 months or more in advance. Good luck with trying to get those asks out, but try to plan it early. Have realistic expectations with your team. Right now, nobody wants to sit through a 5-track conference. Nobody. I'm happy to plan it for you, but nobody wants to sit through that. Celebrate your successes, schedule breaks, make sure you have clear KPIs, get those executive buy-ins, man. It's very important. Learn how to say no, maybe next time. And if you know you're going to pull an all-nighter, this is what I do, and it's all like military based, is if you know you're not going to get a lot of sleep, for sure, like overnight set or something like that. You can try waking up in a 45-minute sleeping circadian increment.
Lisa, can you post where you found this? I have Googled and Googled and Googled, and I cannot find it anywhere. And I'm
Yeah,
totally intrigued by this.
I'll ask my brother because he is like studies wellness as well. It's all through the Navy SEALs. His really good.
Yeah, that's what I Googled and I couldn't find it. So I'd love to
Oh,
read up
interesting.
on this.
Yeah, I know I've done it for years. And it does work if you can fall asleep quickly. So I pair it with meditation.
That's pretty much all I could find was how to fall asleep quickly, according to the Navy SEALs. I couldn't find anything about the wake up.
Interesting. Okay, I'll ask him where he got it from, some book or podcast I know, but
Cool.
it's important to be able to fall asleep quickly and then measure your sleep increment. And actually, if you've ever measured your sleep, there's apps that will tell you when you're in your REM. And so your REM might be a little bit different than everybody else's, but there's apps that can track when you're in your deep sleep and how long your increment is.
But I feel that is so like biased to your daily habits, because I track that like a hawk, right? And I want to know how long my deep sleep is, my REM cycles, when do I wake up, all the things. And it's different from night to night to night. I promise you, there's no pattern to say, oh, this is when I actually fall within my, no, it's not. So I'm curious about that study too, because I don't feel like it's that easy and straightforward to figure it out, you know?
I think it was and I don't have the research, but it's a default to a best practice to basically survive for Navy SEALs. So it's not a perfect science, I doubt, because everybody is different. But if they know they're going to be on a mission, which honestly, we're on missions regularly. At least I feel like I am. Get it done. We're on the mission. That is a default. Like somehow somebody came up with that. Another thing for connecting with healthy events is create humor in your connections. Or humor and human connections as you go through. So if you can laugh, I know I laugh at myself all day. If you've worked with me, I'm constantly laughing. I just think that's just how I am. But if you can figure out ways to laugh, have humor, not take things so seriously, you'll be able to also get through the hard parts. Fostering a healthy team. Different managers do different things, but personally, I would schedule your time off at the beginning of the year. So you have your goals, it's all good to go. You've booked your flights, you're committed. Make sure your manager understands when you're on site that things will be different. You can't respond right away, what those expectations are, and have very clear communications and boundaries with your manager. Fostering a healthy you. I do this. I don't know if anyone else does, but does anyone take a yearly retreat by themselves?
Like a solo vacation?
It's not a vacation. It is a retreat. There are relaxing parts in it. I've been doing it for 3 years now. I go by myself for 2 days. I have an agenda, just like if I was going on a work retreat with other colleagues, of what I want to accomplish. I map out every single month and by quarter of my year. I do things like, how am I doing with my relationship with my partner, my friends, my child, my work friends and colleagues, my clients? How am I doing financially? Where do I want to go? What are my goals? Am I planning my vacation? I map it all out. I do stickies in different colors. And then I put it into a spreadsheet and I go back quarterly to see how I'm doing. But what it does is it helps me understand, okay, for this year, one thing that my kid was telling me is that when he comes home from school and I don't give him 30 minutes of my time, he feels sad. He wants to connect with me. He needs a snack. He needs his homework done. So I have built in my calendar. It's actually 45 minutes of my time, and every single afternoon is dedicated to that, the love of my life, right? Because he's the purpose of my life. So because I went on that retreat, that made me pause and think about how to do that.
How is that different from a vision board strategy meeting that you do?
Almost the exact same,
Okay.
but
Just for
it's
yourself.
just by myself. I go
Mhm.
by myself. I also order my favorite food. I go into nature. I sleep. You know, if I will even make a list of, you know, who are my best friends and how am I doing on those? Like, am I there for them like they're for me?
Right.
You know, my spiritual walk, am I where I want to be? My partner, you know, if you don't ever pause and think about, wow, like, how is that relationship going? So one time last year, I was like, we haven't been on a vacation where we fly in an airplane, right? Like, we need to go somewhere. So I booked a trip to San Diego a year ago. This year, when I did it, I booked a trip to New York because my bonus child is he's going into 9th grade. And in a lot of cultures, when you're in 8th grade, kind of growing into a man, you have this trip, right? I don't know if you guys have heard this and you experience the world. So I decided that would be a huge goal for me, is to help him see the world. And so I booked that trip. So it happened. But if you don't pause and plan, you won't do it. I only do it
All
once.
I'm gonna say is goals, life goals.
Yeah. And it's all sorts of stuff. Like, also, I wanted to learn the piano. So guess what? I have a piano now, right? I wanted to do something spiritual and I was like, music needs to come back. Now, music might not be a priority this year because I have to let go of other things that were a priority last year that will be this year, but it's super helpful. We are at time. We didn't get through everything, but the joy of being able to read is upon you. So take a minute. There's tips for stress management, yoga and stretching, which Mia already did, how to communicate with your manager, setting boundaries with unreasonable requests. And that's kind of the last. So I could talk about this for days. I'm very, very passionate about it. I am in the Event Professionals Network. It's that free group that we do. Yeah, thanks everybody for joining. David, thank you for co-hosting with me again.
Absolutely.
I wish you well on your new adventure.
Wish me pipeline. That's what I need right now.
Sounds good. We're all looking at that right now. But yes, let us know how we can help. We are here to serve a wonderful community, and we hope you have a lovely season. Yeah.
Do you plan to do another one beginning of next year? Just curious.
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah.
I'm like a whole nother person when I do it. Yeah. So I usually do it before my team offsite. So my team offsite, shockers, already scheduled. It's the first week in January. So I'll be doing it by the end of the year. And I go all by myself. My partner always is like, you're so weird. And I'm like, no, I'm not weird. So this is just how I do it by Carly. And it really does just elevate where I'm going and gives me a very clear map on how to be my best self. Yeah. All right, friends. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day. Bye.